Hi, my name is Jim. I'm a DevOps consultant at Release Team, a GitLab channel and professional services partner. In this talk, I'll discuss some effective ideas concerning GitLab pipeline rules. The goal is to bring these ideas to your attention so you can recognize them in your own work. As GitLab partners, we work with a broad range of environments and configurations. We encounter certain mistakes repeatedly. Flaws appear in rules when they are initially written, and also as they are updated over time. The goal here is to illustrate common issues we see when we're working with clients. Especially for engineers who are just getting started with GitLab, controlling when CI jobs are executed can be confusing. Start simple and test as you go. As you go along, look for the patterns we discuss here, implementing them as appropriate. When implementing a rule, you'll always start with the idea of the rule you want to create, even if that rule isn't fully understood right away. Describing a rule in plain language often helps clarify the exact intent before implementing it. If you find it's difficult to describe a rule in one simple sentence, consider breaking the rule down into multiple rules so it can be more easily understood. For our purposes, more specific and more general can be thought of as the number of Boolean operators in a rule. The more operators, the more complex the rule is. You can see here that the first rule has 3 operators, the second rule has 1, and the third rule is unconditional, which we'll get back to in a moment. The first matching rule determines if a job is run or not. Having the most complex rules listed first helps ensure that the rule isn't preempted by a more general rule. Look at these negative and positive example rules. The negative rule requires you to recognize the double negative condition, while the positive rule expresses more clearly when the job is intended to be part of the pipeline. It's preferable but not always correct. There are times when it is better to use negative logic. There are instances when it is not ideal to list every possible context. In general, positive logic is preferred over negative logic, but this is not an absolute rule, as demonstrated in the example on screen. Finding the right balance between complexity and comprehension is essential. Rules that are easy to understand are typically easier to maintain. If your goal is to enable development teams to manage their own CI pipelines, which is a good thing, realize that developers don't have the same level of GitLab expertise. If no rules match, the default behavior is not to run the job, but this isn't always understood. Put an explicit unconditional rule at the end of the list of rules as a catch-all to clearly describe your intention. Be very careful when using unconditional rules to run a job, as it frequently leads to jobs running that you don't expect to run. Similar to specific cases where negative logic is acceptable, there are some specific cases where always run is appropriate. Contradictions are expressions that can never be true. Here, we see that the target branch name needs to be 2 values at the same time. The author probably intended for the job to run if either condition is true, not both. These can creep into rules over time and aren't always as easy to spot as this example. Especially experienced engineers can make mistakes when they try to rely on operator precedence in Boolean expressions. In this example, the 2 conditions for the target branch name should be enclosed in parentheses to properly implement the rule. Parentheses are your friend. Use them to clarify your intention. Keep the laws of Boolean algebra in mind when writing rules, as simpler rules are easier to understand. Boolean algebra teaches us laws that we can use to produce equivalent rules that are more concise. That said, if your rules are so complex that you need to use these techniques to clarify them, consider refactoring your CI configuration with conditional workflows and includes, which is beyond the scope of this talk. In GitLab, comparisons and rules are evaluated as strings. Programmers who are accustomed to being able to automatically evaluate variables as Booleans may not appreciate the differences. From the previous slide, we know that everything is a string but we can constrain some values when we use them as inputs. Specifically, you can limit true and false values to known strings by defining inputs to a Boolean type. When dealing with mutually exclusive conditions that trigger different job behaviors, such as merge requests versus pushes to a specific branch, it can be clearer, more maintainable, and more flexible to create separate rules instead of relying on a complex expression. In our work, we strongly prefer multiple rules. Sometimes an if statement isn't the right solution on its own. This rule would be less clear and less reliable if it were written only as an if statement. Combining the various statements in one rule allows you to further limit when jobs are run, reducing the number of total jobs, thus speeding up your pipelines. Don't use AI to build rules. We haven't seen an AI yet with the reasoning capabilities necessary to accurately create anything but the most basic configuration. Maybe someday, but not today. They're not bad at troubleshooting unexpected behavior in pipelines. If you want to use AI to help troubleshoot a pipeline, take some time to engineer a good prompt that checks its work and responds in a tone that is useful to you. Thanks for taking the time to watch, and I hope this talk helps your teams to write more maintainable CI configurations. If Release Team can help with any DevOps project, please reach out to us.